So, Matt, we've had to cut this because you went 13 minutes just to get through the intro to this game.
So my 7 minutes in heaven ended up being 27 minutes in heaven, and really happy with that, of course.
Oh, yeah, because it was all heaven, right?
It was indeed. Or purgatory, I'm not really sure.
Well, do you know the background story of this game? Of how this thing came about?
No. Enlighten me.
Oh, okay. So Level 9, a company founded by three brothers in 1981, English company, bedroom coders, and they had created a text parser adventure game engine. And they were making games and pretty respectable, not huge, but they were pretty respectable, selling well enough in England that they made it the first 10 years without a problem. And then they realized text adventures, the old type, the European type with, half the screen was a graphic, the bottom half was text.
Yeah.
That wasn't going to sell anymore. So they created this new game engine that was part text adventure, part CinemaWare knockoff.
Yeah.
And it had some weird name like Q-Link or something like that. And they started making two games. Champion of the Raj, and you may have heard of this, even seen ads for it, Billy the Kid by Ocean. Billy the Kid never officially comes out, but pirated copies of it were everywhere. And it was just as broken as this. But I always thought that it was broken because it didn't get released. It was an incomplete game. And it turns out, after seeing you play this, and I'll be honest, I didn't play it beforehand, I understand it was just broken because the engine sucks.
Oh yes. I mean, there could be a good game here somewhere, but the engine was just so incredibly slow. I've never seen anything like this. Have a look at the. I was playing this on real hardware on the Amiga 500, so have a look at the disk load times, and often it would say insert disk 1, it'll load a bit. Insert disk 2, it'll load a bit. Insert disk 1, it'll load it. It's a 2-disc game. Insert disk 2, it'll load a bit, and then it would progress the game. So for some reason, they hadn't even probably planned the disk loads. That's stuff you did back in the day, of course, because you knew people would be loading this off disk, so you'd put this data on disk 1, this data on disk 2. You'd even duplicate some of the data so it'd be on disk 1 and 2 because you knew you'd need it at the same time, so people wouldn't have to swap disks all the bloody time. But this is the perfect example of how not to do a multi-disc game. I've never seen anything like it.
This is, I mean, when you sent me the video, I was just flabbergasted. I could not believe what I was seeing. I mean, the intro was just as bad. The intro, every
very
little
slow.
thing had to be loaded, and it was just, I mean, and it's not like super impressive graphics or something, but it's just, oh my God, look at that scroll.
Look at that elephant, man. It's moving through molasses.
Jesus.
And this is on the Amiga in 1991.
And now it's just stopped.
1991.
Not because he stopped, it's because it stopped for some reason. I mean, this is the kind of animation jumps I'd expect on a Sinclair Spectrum. I mean, This is just terrible.
And the mouse movement, I mean, when you get into the game, the mouse cursor moves as bad as this. It looks as if the mouse cursor is jumping around in this video, but that's not because my old ball mouse was actually faulty or anything like that. It's just the game engine lacking in speed. So when you move the mouse, you'll have to wait for a couple of seconds. So, and there we go. Insert disk 1 again.
Oh, Jesus Christ almighty.
So I spent 27 minutes, and I feel like I've only scratched the surface of what this game actually is. I've got no idea what to do yet.
Well, and you're right. It does feel like there's a good game in there someplace. Now, I'm guessing you weren't using real discs, correct?
No, I'm cheating there. I've got a Gotek drive installed in my trusty old A500.
Yeah, it might not be so bad if you have 2 disk drives. I mean, maybe then it's a little bit better, but still, I can't imagine that it would be any real improvement over this. This is terrible.
Yeah. But definitely, if you do play this in an emulator with 2 disk drives and just pop in both disks. Don't do as I did. Drive you
Or
crazy.
maybe an HD HD
HD load.
installation.
Yeah.
Yeah, an HD load.
Yeah, and maybe play it
Because
on the A1200 if you have that available.
I doubt that would actually make a speed increase. This is terrible on so many levels. Again, I do apologize, and for those Patreon subscribers who are watching this, I know when we did Dragon's Lair Time Warp, it was kind of monotonous to watch, but it was still a vast improvement over this here. This is, oh my god, please insert this too. Did you actually have to click something every time, or?
Yes. There's a button for switching disks up and down the disk index
Oh.
on the GoTo drive. So luckily there were only two buttons, so I knew if it said insert disk 1, it would be down once, and vice versa.
Wow. So you went through all of that basically for a quick little function.
So I'd like to know what's actually going on with this map, because I was trying to click everything and it took so long. Whenever you click something, you'd have to wait 15, 20 seconds. Then it'd say, okay, I've got this region. And sometimes there'd be somebody to talk to. Sometimes there would be somebody to attack. Actually, I got to do one battle at the end. In the end, it actually looked a bit like North and South, if you remember that. Good old classic, but in a totally unfun way. If they just taken the combat from North and South, it would have been a winner in my book. But no, they didn't. But there is like a strategic element, a strategic battle element as well. So I feel like this is not a point and click adventure in any way. It's a strategic game. Pretty much, I feel like playing North and South, like a crappy version of North and South when playing this. You need to conquer different parts of the map. You need to make sure that people like you. That's why we did that parade with the elephants, by the way. And this is just me guessing, because you told me not to read any manuals or anything about this game. You wanted me to go in it with fresh eyes, but I feel like if the loading times were like 10 to 15, maybe 20 times shorter than this, it would be a playable and fun experience.
Yeah, I mean, when I saw this game in magazines back in the day, a lot of comparisons were made to Cinemaware games, similar to Defender of the Crown.
Yeah, I can understand.
Or Lords of the Rising Sun or something, because it's that mixture of a somewhat simplified conquest strategy game with action elements in between and some dialogues, give it that cinematic feel, which it definitely has, or it would have if the graphics were slightly better drawn. But I mean, just look at this. This yeah, this just looks like somebody took some really cheap EGA graphics and ported them over or something.
It does, doesn't it? I mean, in 1991, you expect more from the Amiga.
Oh, definitely. I mean, you'd expect more from EGA. But Spellcasting 101 had already been released at this point, so EGA graphics could look good.
Yep.
But, I mean, it almost... For me, this game represents a lot of what was wrong with the English game publishing industry at this point in time. They were still kind of stuck in, well, the ZX Spectrum is in large part still our bread and butter. The 16-bit computers are finally coming into their own. We can finally maybe make games that are designed specifically for those, while at the same time Wing Commander has just come over. So it's like, if we're designing games for the Amiga, we're already designing for something that's 5 years out of date. I love my Amiga, but let's face it, Wing Commander kind of put us to shame at that point. And it's just weird, because the next year we're going to get Ultima Underworld, and that demo is already being shown at all the shows. So everybody knows the big stuff is coming. It's just, it kind of feels like, okay, these guys are bedroom coders who made text adventures, and the limitations of amateur, I'll put it in quotation marks, programmers is being shown. Amateur game producers, people who are actually professionals in organizing how to make a game.
Yeah,
That's what's being shown here.
Yeah, you're probably right. Of course, there were those few who just did it just right. I mean, have a look at the output of Sensible Software, for example, in these
Exactly.
years, and that could rival easily what came out on the PC at that point. But stuff like this, not so much, not so much. But you're right. Even in, I mean, 1991 was. I still have my Amiga until '93. But
Mm,
91 was already at that tipping point where the PC was kind of taking over. I mean, 91 is when Monkey Island 2 is released. It has the
exactly.
beautiful iMuse sound system for the PC that's
Hmm.
just so superior to what we see on the good old Amiga. And I'm sad to say that the Amiga was already on the way out as the reigning platform for gaming back then.
Well, we're going to talk about it later in this episode, but Wing Commander 2, the first ads for it are popping up. And that's
Yeah,
going to have, the full speech throughout
yeah.
the game. So the cinematics are now with full spoken speech. And we're not talking CD-ROM. So you already know that it's over.
Yeah.
Uh, and but it is one of those things where, or we'll mention it. We can mention it here. It didn't make it into the show notes, but I also look at a bunch of the Amiga magazines from the States every month.
Yeah.
And they're completely different from the Amiga mags in Europe because they're not dedicated to games. It's all about, video toaster and desktop publishing and that kind of stuff. And the only leg they have to stand on at this point is, well, the PC can do everything we can do, but we can do it a lot cheaper. That's the only selling point is we do it cheaper.
Yeah, but the PC is quite expensive at this point in time, so
And
maybe
that's
that
going to
is a
be one of
selling
the
point.
stories we will talk about. Yes, we will talk about just how expensive a high-end PC is at this point. I mean, I remember it was 1990. A buddy of mine dropped $3,000 on a PC just so he could play Wing Commander. It was a 33 megahertz 386 with I think it was 2 or 3 megs of RAM.
90, that would have been a beast.
Yeah, dude, it was with Sound Blaster card. I remember, he picked it up on a trip to Miami.
So the first Sound Blaster was out in 1990 already.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Sound Blaster was out in 1990. I mean, AdLib had already been out for a couple of years by then. But Sound Blaster, the first one, comes out in 1990. Not the 16, but the 8-bit.
No, yeah, of course. I had the 8-bit one as my first Sound card as well.
Okay, and now here is the combat sequence.
Here we go. Yes. So have a look how the troops are moving towards each other. You need to issue simple commands, and I mean. They just missed a trick here because that could actually have been a fun element. I mean, I can just imagine the North and South combat here, where you have 3 different kinds of troops. You have infantry, you have cavalry, you have elephants. They, of course, match off against other kinds of troops. Like I would assume sending your elephants against the infantry would be a good idea, for example, and so on and so forth. But this is just this very, very simple strategy game where you get to choose whether you want to charge or advance, and who you want to charge if you're charging anything. And there's only infantry to charge here, so I just sent everybody to charge the infantry, and I thought the elephants were probably too slow, so just advance for those guys. And have a look at the speed there again. I mean, we're getting a full frame a second, aren't we?
Oh, Jesus, this is terrible. And when you put this into context, so the options they give you here are really no better than the options that you got in the original Defender of the Crown. I mean,
that's true. That's true.
They're little more than that. Now, granted, that didn't have the sprites. Well, moving around is a strong word in this case, but but this is also coming a year after Centurion Defender of Rome, which had similar combat, also with elephants, but it was using a 3/4 perspective. You could actually flank maneuver.
Yeah.
You could do all of those things. That's missing from this game. I mean, it's weak sauce.
Yep. And look at my elephants there. They never attacked anybody. I was never given the choice to give them a new order. They just kept advancing.
Oh, Jesus.
This was definitely 7 minutes or 27 minutes in heaven. I'm so glad I played it on real hardware, so I couldn't like speed up the loading time or anything like that. That was brilliant, Carl. Thanks a lot, mate.
I'm sorry, dude. I am so very, very sorry. I honestly, given the reviews at the time, I did not think this was going to be as bad as it turned out to be.
Well, it's all
really
done
did.
now, at least.
Well, now we have to talk about it on the episode. So, okay, let's kill this and get back to the normal recording.
Yeah, we can just stay